Let's call the meeting to order, please. The study session. Begin with the pledge, if you would mind, if you are able to stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Preamble from the state of Missouri. We, the people of Missouri, with profound reverence for the supreme ruler of the universe and grateful for his goodness, do establish this Constitution for the better government of the state. If you join me in prayer, please. Lord, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come together and to seek to do good. We ask your presence as we seek to make decisions to benefit the citizens and the folks who work so hard to keep this city together. We ask you to be with us as we think through processes, give us discernment, but mostly give us wisdom. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you give a roll call, please?
McConnell. Whitus.
Here.
Simmons.
Here.
Akers.
Here.
Gaines.
Here.
Milton.
Here.
C.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Today is a study session. Study sessions are for the aldermen and staff to hear special reports and to come together to talk about things that we need to bring before the council, either by creating a new ordinance or by discussion to bring before the public to vote on. And so today, as usual, there's no public input except from those who have been invited to speak. And the aldermen will seek to share with you all their thoughts about these topics. I'd like to begin now from Rachel Wood from the Branson Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're really excited to be here today to present some new information to the board. There will be two individual presentations. The first presentation will be the Branson Coronavirus Recovery Preparedness Study. The purpose of conducting this study was to better understand the current sentiment of prospective Branson visitors and to determine the best way to position the area for a safe return of visitation in the upcoming months. This study was conducted among past Branson visitors who had previously provided their email address as part of the Branson CVB's ongoing Visitor Interceptor Research Program. The second presentation will be the Branson KPI Dashboard. We have been working on developing this tool for the last year and are thrilled to roll it out for our community to use in analyzing our key performance indicators that were previously seen in the quarterly marketing reports. We are happy to have here today Ashley Garut with H2R Research. She will do the presentations of the results of the studies. Ashley?
Good morning. My name is Ashley Garut, and I'll be presenting a couple of different things for you guys today. I've brought my coworker with me, Ashley Ophoven. She is our customer experience specialist, and she has been working a lot with our nationwide COVID data. So I'll be presenting specific Branson information today, and she's here to provide some color commentary on what that looks like compared to nationwide data that we've also been studying.
Two Ashleys then, right?
Two Ashleys,
All
easy
right.
to remember. So a quick note about this research. We did this research back in May, so it is a couple of weeks old. We do realize that things change very fast. With COVID, opinions are always changing. So I just wanted to give that little disclaimer. We are currently this week in the field for the second round so that we can get some updated information. So just know some opinions may have changed, but we do think it is the most recent and relevant data for you guys. So, all right, so first we asked some general outlook questions. And we found that 7 in 10 Branson visitors now wear a mask when they're in public, and 66% live in an area where a stay-at-home mandate has been issued. And this is very similar to nationwide trends. So we're still seeing lots of mask wearing, people staying at home. Now, as we know, just a couple of days ago in Missouri, the stay-at-home mandate was completely lifted. So obviously that information is going to be updated. We'll see if people continue to wear masks, work from home, be asked to quarantine. All of those things may continue to change.
May I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
The N number on the right side, is that how many people were surveyed?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yep. Now, while most Branson visitors wear masks while they're away from home, those most likely to visit or to be among the first to return to Branson are wearing masks in substantially lower numbers. So as you can see here, the people that say that they're going to be first to return, only 46% of those people wear masks in public, whereas people who say, I'm not gonna return maybe until next year, they're 89% are wearing masks in public. So a little bit more confidence in thinking, you know, I think this virus has passed, I'm gonna return, I don't necessarily need to wear a mask. We also wanted to know what consumers and past Branson visitors think will be the longest lasting effects of the coronavirus pandemic. Branson visitors expect hand washing, avoiding indoor attractions in general, social distancing, and avoiding non-essential air travel will stick around for a while. This is pretty similar to what we saw nationwide. Ashley, do we have any more recent data on that?
Yeah, actually this past week, can you guys
You
hear
could
me
move
okay?
to the microphone.
Yep. I just want to make sure I have the right data for you. This past week, we asked, what actions are you going to continue doing, even though, you know, we're kind of in a weird phase of, we're not right in the middle of the pandemic anymore, but we're not at recovery. And 55% of all consumers, 59% of travelers in particular said that they are going to continue to kind of maintain that social, physical distance between one another when they're out and about. Only 45% said that they're going to continue wearing masks. And we saw 48% are going to visit places during less busy times of the day, times of the week. So I think that that is something, you know, that Branson as a tourism industry city should, you know, be aware of, is that people are looking to visit when it's not quite as busy.
We also wanted to know which of the types of locations or activities consumers and Branson visitors would feel most safe visiting at that current time. So this was late May. Grocery stores, not surprising, that's kind of an essential, but also things like parks and trails, outdoor attractions. 4 in 10 said that they would be comfortable visiting a hotel or a resort at that time. And another 37% vacation homes and condos. So that's really great news for the travel industry, that people are comfortable going to those types of attractions and hotels. And then over the next 3 months, what are people seeing themselves doing? They're most likely visiting restaurants, taking a domestic leisure trip. Half of our past Branson visitors said that they were going to take a domestic leisure trip, or 46% said that they would stay overnight in a hotel or resort. I find that very positive news that we're getting some people out there and more comfortable with traveling. I heard as I walked in that Branson seems like a whole new city just in the past few days, more people coming around. And so I think that we're on that road to recovery. And then taking a look specifically at those who will probably or definitely take a leisure trip in the next 3 months. Overall, like I said before, is at 51%. Those under the age of 55 are the most likely. Families with children at home are right behind them. And then those people living within 150 miles of Branson are going to be the top 3 targets that are going to be traveling the most in the next 3 months.
Was that something you were kind of expecting?
Yes.
Keeping it kind of closer to home?
Yes.
Sorry, I pulled my...
Sorry, I was like, who's asking
Who's
the
that
question?
masked man?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. So our prediction is that drive markets for every destination are going to be very important, especially when we're seeing people saying they're going to avoid non-essential air travel. So they're going to be driving in their cars, and most people are going to stay within that 3 to 4 hour drive range to make it worth it. So do you have some more?
Yes, I do. Most recently, 52% of consumers nationwide said that they would be willing to drive to a destination rather than fly, which only 27% of consumers said that they would be willing to fly. So that's almost double. And let me just go back to this. 14% of consumers nationwide have actually already ventured out. And I found this super interesting when I was looking at this data. That number is the same regardless of the age. So we looked at travelers or consumers under the age of 50 and over, and they're both at 14% that have already ventured out, which is surprising because here we see, that the older people are probably going to stay in longer. But our most recent data says that they're ready to go too.
So at the time, the environmental cues that people needed to feel comfortable to resume their leisure travel, the top answer was local and/or statewide stay-at-home restrictions are lifted. Well, guess what? That just happened a few days ago. So that's our top cue, which is really great. People are going to start venturing out again. People also want to see an all clear from federal government or CDC officials. Another 45% would like a vaccine to be implemented. And then their local government's giving the all clear. So we're already on our way. We've got, our state government said that stay-at-home restrictions are lifted for all businesses. We probably won't get an all clear from the CDC anytime soon. Just looking at, I think that's kind of a hard thing for them to say. And there's some hope on the horizon for some vaccines. So hopefully we can get some more of those cues for people to feel more comfortable. And like Ashley said, 14% said they had already ventured out, and a couple of weeks ago, 14% said within the next couple of weeks, I'd like to take a trip in sometime in May. So pretty consistently, people said they want to go, and they're starting to go. Another 17% in the May to June timeframe. July really spikes. I think people at that point are going to be really ready to go. Only 4% said that they were going to wait until the holiday season, and only 14% said that they would wait all the way until next year. So I think this summer we're going to see a nice rebound, especially if things continue to go well like they have. And then, how likely are people going to be to travel by the end of the summer? Taking a look across consumer segments. Overall, like we saw on the previous page, 60% said by the end of the summer. Again, younger people with families who live closer are going to be our first visitors. And so not surprising to see that those are our top visiting by the end of the summer. Where will you visit first? This is not surprising considering we surveyed all past Branson visitors, but 40% unaided said, I'm going to visit Branson first. Another 10% said Silver Dollar City. So our past visitors are very loyal, and they want to come back. Other people said things like going camping. We saw some Florida, some Tennessee in there. But really, as far as destinations go, Branson tops the list for those past visitors. Yes?
Question again, just for edification. How many of these people were actually here in Branson? Or are we talking about people that had previously visited Branson you'd contacted?
This is previously prior to COVID.
Thank you.
I will add real quick, in our most recent study, we asked intent to visit Branson this summer, in 2020 and in 2021. And nationwide, so, take this with a grain of salt, 2.3% of consumers said that they would travel to Branson. The average for all of the destinations is only 4.3%. So it's not super far off, but nationwide, just to kind of put this in perspective, 2% of people are saying, I'm gonna go to Branson this summer, which, when you say 2%, it's not like, woohoo, but compared to all of the 12 destinations that we did test, it's pretty close to the average, which is good.
Excuse me, Ashley?
Yes.
So you said that was an unaided question?
Yes, this previous slide was unaided. We just left the box open and they could type in whatever they wanted.
Wow.
The one that I'm talking about was aided. So we gave them a list of destinations and said, how likely are you to visit each of these destinations this summer? So this one was aided.
Was that 2% an average? High, low, median?
The 2% was the average for Branson. The average overall was 4.3%.
We also wanted to know, are people going to travel outside of the United States internationally? And the answer is very few. 5% overall intend to travel outside of the US in the next 6 months. So we're going to see lots of domestic travel, people staying closer to home. We've seen this a lot whenever we look at things that are natural disasters, when people are less comfortable flying, which is the case now. People tend to stay closer to home. We tend to get better visitation. Branson is a very regional destination, and that's just amplified when we get a lot of domestic travel. So we expect to see that happen again in the next year. So visitation outlook. we took a look at several different destinations, and this is similar to what Ashley was talking about before. How likely are you to visit each of the following destinations? We asked them about Branson, Kansas City, Lake of the Ozarks, St. Louis, Eureka Springs, Smoky Mountains, Wisconsin Dells, and Myrtle Beach. All those destinations, past Branson visitors are most likely to return to Branson, and they said that in the next 3 months. So we've got a really high propensity of visitation, not a lot of competition for other destinations either. Taking a look at just Branson across consumer segments, we see overall, again, that was 54%, and then among those living within 150 miles, it's 77%. So again, we're just getting a lot of confirmation that our local regional travel is going to be where people are coming from over the next 3 to 6 months. And then what best describes your return to Branson once restrictions are lifted? Is it going to be, I'm probably not gonna visit this year, it'll take a while, but I suspect I'll be back later this summer. I'll be back just as soon as I can see others venturing out, or I will be among the first to return. So again, those under 55, families, and within 150 miles are most likely to say they'll be among the first to return. But most people are falling in that, it'll take a while, but I expect later this summer or early fall. So we'll probably see a nice uptick now that things have opened back up. And then later this summer, I suspect we'll start to see that rise happen again. And then what seasons do you expect? Is it gonna be this summer, fall, holidays, into next year? And like I said, it may take a while. In 2020, those living within 150 miles are the most likely to visit, regardless of the season, but all segments exhibit an even stronger intent to visit in 2021. When considering a return to Branson, it's the shows, shopping, and beautiful scenery that Branson visitors consider most important. So as you can see there, those are the top things. We have some of that something for everyone and great culinary experiences in theme parks, but it's those top 3 that are gonna be the functional drivers over the next few months to get people to return. Most plan to use a hotel or motel on their next visit. We got some timeshares in there and some condos. Got some people saying, you know, I don't think I'll stay overnight, it may just be a day trip. But we got quite a few saying they'll stay in hotels, which is great news for our hotels in the city, that we can see a nice uptick of people staying overnight. We've got taking a look at those first to return versus those who will not return this year. Those who are first to return are a little bit younger, you know, more likely to be families. The average age is about 56 for first return versus 62 for will not return this year. Party sizes are actually larger for those who are first to return, which is good news. Household income just a bit lower for those who are first to return. So just a nice little demographic profile of who we're going to be targeting and trying to get to come back. Post-viral positioning. So most Branson visitors turn to their local TV news stations or network cable TV news stations for information about the impact that coronavirus is having on the US and in their local community. There's some, you know, about 58% tune into the presidential news conferences. Others are getting stories from online news. So quite a variety of different places that people are turning to get their information. So these are the places that we'll want to disseminate information about Branson.
Question, the issue of social media, did that surprise you that it stayed sort of in the middle versus being higher?
Not really. Given the demographics of our typical past Branson visitor, it's a bit older than our nationwide traveler, and so I was not surprised to see that, you know, they're turning more towards local news, network cable TV news, but, you know, social media is pretty proliferal throughout all of our visitors, so, you know, it's right in the middle, right where I'd expect it to be. But among those who did select that social media, speaking of, they're turning to Facebook. So 40% are turning to Facebook, got some YouTube. Some people don't follow Branson on social media at all, but we do have quite a bit of social media following. So if you're wanting to disseminate across social media, it looks like Facebook is going to be the way to go.
Did you were able to probe a little further on what sites in Facebook? Were they visiting the CVBs, the city of Branson's? Or
So
what site were they
this-
pulling the data from?
Yeah, so this is going to be specifically to Branson's social media pages, not necessarily just Facebook in general, because we asked, have you visited any of Branson's social media? So Branson's Facebook page, Branson's YouTube, Branson's Instagram,
Okay.
and so on. And then, we wanted to know what type of messaging do you want to hear? What's going to make you feel safe, remind you that Branson is open for business? And the highest, although all these are pretty high, the highest type of messaging that people want to hear is one that features the type of actions that area attractions, hotels, and restaurants, everybody, is doing to keep guests safe and healthy. I will tell you, I am one of those first venture outers. My husband and I went on a little mini vacation last week, and it was great because we researched everything. We wanted to know what people were doing, what we needed to do to be responsible travelers. But once we got to the destination, we found that there were some inconsistencies. They may have said one thing, but there was another thing that was actually true. And so what I would add to that is that you can say all you want, you're gonna do these things, but if you're not delivering on that, then you're just gonna get people to say, don't go there. They're not actually doing any of that. So, so you have to make sure that all attractions, hotels, restaurants, everyone buys in to what the messaging that you're putting out is.
I'll add to this. We asked a similar but different question in our most recent study, and it was a select one, of which marketing message is most likely to motivate you to visit. And we actually see in this question that discounts are the top motivator, which we see all the time and is very common. But previously, this was the first wave of this research that discounts ranked number one. It had continued to be messaging that features what people are doing to protect me. So that shift has we've seen the tides change, and moving forward, I think that we can continue to expect people to want discounts, and that's what's really gonna motivate them, get them to Branson, and nationwide, but Branson.
Question on that, discounts, family, are we talking about packaging, family packaging, hotels, restaurants all together, or the couponing stuff?
Yeah, I think it's different for every traveler. So if they feel like they're getting some sort of deal, they can consider that a discount. It doesn't have to be just 10% off or a package. That's something that you can do some testing on. So if I'm a hotel, I want to do some A/B testing, I might run, an ad for a week on this type of discount, and then next week I'm gonna run an ad on a different type of discount and see what got me the most hits. That's a really simple way to test what type of discounts are good for your own business. But it really comes down to, do I feel like I'm getting a deal? And that could be the discount. It doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, book now and get 10% off. It could be as blatant as that, but it doesn't have to be.
Thank you.
Yeah. And here we go. So what is very or extremely motivational to you? Whenever we had them rank them, when they rated any of the messages they rated previously, a 4 or a 5, we wanted to say what was most motivational. So while they want to see what people are doing to keep them healthy, the most motivational are offers, deals, discounts, or bargains of some kind. But we followed that up again with a third question. So now that you rated how motivational, now you can only pick one. What is the one type? And that's the how are you keeping me healthy? Like Ashley said, the most recent nationwide data was just from last week. This data is a couple of weeks old now. We're redoing the Branson data this week, so I'm excited to see if discounts are gonna follow that nationwide trend and come up just a little bit. But as soon as we have that data, we can let you know, and you can see if this page has shifted at all. And so whenever we took a look at those who would be most inspired to visit by hearing about the healthy actions people are taking, the people that are most motivated are females, people who live farthest away. So the people who live closest aren't necessarily motivated by that healthy message as much as people who live farther away. That has to do with familiarity. If I live close, I probably already am familiar with what Branson is doing through friends and family who may have gone. I may have a friend who owns a business down there, so I may not necessarily need to know that because I already do. So that's why we see that trend where it goes farther away. You need to know those types of messages. And what makes you most nervous about traveling in the near future? And again, we see that people are just afraid that destinations aren't going to take the actions they need to keep people safe. Also, other people, they're afraid that other people are just going to get too close and not social distance the way they're supposed to. And so there is some fear about catching coronavirus still out there. I'm interested to see if that drops as people are thinking, I would rather get out of my house than and risk it a little bit than to stay home and stay safe. So I think there's a little bit of risk reward there.
And we see nationwide that same kind of trend. People are most nervous about being in large crowds and other people not acting responsibly.
And taking a look at, will you wear a mask the next time you visit Branson? So overall, about 38% said that they would wear a mask, so that's less than half. The older, 55 and up are much more likely than 55 and younger. People who live farther away, again, I traveled last week pretty far away, and the farther away from Missouri I got, the more masks I saw. We're kind of in a rural area. We're a little bit more sheltered from as much of the effects of the pandemic, so we don't see as many masks being worn, and we see that data trend that way here in the survey. So how likely would you be to visit Branson if the following actions were taken? So early in the survey, we saw the intent to visit Branson was, I think, 54%. So, or maybe around there in the next 3 months. So if you knew that deep cleaning of all surfaces occurs each evening and at regular intervals throughout the day at the places that you want to visit, 81% said that, yep, I'll visit Branson if that happens. And that's a lift of 27%. Oh yeah, I wrote it right there. Over 54. 27 points lift. So if the messages get out there that my hotel and the attractions I want to visit are doing some deep cleaning, my intent to visit skyrockets. Also, hand sanitizers being installed around Branson, my intent goes up 24 points. On the flip side of that, if visitors are required to have an immunity passport or some sort of QR code indicating that they have not been around people who have tested positive, their intent to visit tanks. So there's some things that people will accept while traveling and things that people just aren't willing to do. So that is the first part of my presentation. Does anybody have any other questions about the recovery data before I move on?
Yes, ma'am. Can you make this available for us, please?
Absolutely. Rachel, do you have that to send out? Yeah.
Yeah, this presentation's in the packet.
Okay, there you go. So it is available. And there's a few more slides with our executive summary and our personal thoughts in the beginning, but it's all covered there, so I didn't want to have to say that twice. So, any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to have to switch. I'm going to have to go over
Ashley,
here. Oh, yes.
excuse me a second. Would you go back to page 4, please?
Absolutely. Is this the percent wearing masks in public slide?
No.
Almost there. Is it this one?
No, page 4. That's 6. 2 more, please. There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
It shows there in on the columns on the right, the 4 bars on the right, says the next 3 months. Definitely, probably will not visit is 87%. That doesn't seem in alignment with information in the other charts. It seemed that they were more willing to come in the next 3 months. And that number just stuck out at me when we were going through them, and I should have asked while we were on this slide.
No, that's okay. So this slide is actually showing the percent wearing masks in public. So people who do not want to visit Branson, 87% of those people wear masks in public.
So those are likely to be the same people that aren't wanting to venture out very quickly, and that's why we see that.
Thank you, I missed that.
Yeah, no problem.
And overall, for 2021, with the information you've gathered, do you have an opinion on what Branson's economy realistically could expect in visitors in 2021 compared to last year, for example?
I don't think we're going to see a full recovery by then. Obviously, we're not going to in 2020 with everything being shut down. We do see that more people are going to visit in 2021 than are going to visit later this year. We saw, you have people who start to venture out, so you've got your fast followers, and then some people say, okay, I might come back by the holidays, and then, even more by next year. So I think we can assume, all things normal, if we don't have another huge resurgence or a second wave in COVID, we can start to see our things, our visitation come back up. In our nationwide survey, like Ashley mentioned earlier, people are looking for places to visit when they're less busy. So we might actually see some first quarter visitation that's a little higher than what we would normally see. People trying to venture out when it's not as busy. Obviously, not a lot of our attractions in Branson are open, so we'll have to find some ways to make some offerings for that first quarter before most of our attractions and shows start to open up. And then I think we'll start to see some good recovery, again, assuming next spring this doesn't come back around and we don't have to shut down again. But I don't, personally, my opinion is that we won't see a full recovery in 2021 like we saw, because 19 we had our record 9.1 million. So I don't foresee us getting all the way back to that, but fingers crossed that we can start to make some inroads towards that.
Maybe 80, 90%?
I'm not comfortable.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
sorry,
fair.
I don't
That's fair.
know, to
That's
be
fair.
honest, yeah.
I will say, in that same question that I talked about earlier, where we asked if people were willing to travel this summer, and then in 2020, in 2021, we see that nationwide. So here with Ashley's, we're talking about just Branson visitors, and I'm talking nationwide. We've got 8% of consumers saying, I'll visit Branson in 2021. The average is 11%. So again, slightly below average, but I think that's pretty strong, all things considered.
Okay. And last question, you mentioned when you went on that trip and you checked out different places and some didn't deliver.
Yeah.
like you said. I know the governor's released all of our mandates in the state of Missouri. He also still recommends or highly recommends social distancing, mask and that. Were you surprised when you came to this meeting to see that the Board of Aldermen are not socially distanced?
Honestly, no. From what I've seen locally, fewer people are worried about the coronavirus. A lot of people are still taking precautions like wearing a mask if they think that they're susceptible, washing hands a lot, sanitizing, all those things. But I think that they believe those things are going to help them better than social distancing, because a lot of the information out there says, it can last for 2 hours in the air. So even if I'm social distancing, I might walk through a cloud of coronavirus 2 hours later and still get it. So that's a lot of what I've seen locally. And we're just a lot more spread out. We're a lot more rural community than the bigger cities. And so we don't necessarily have that same worry. It doesn't surprise me. Now, farther away from Missouri, I was telling Ashley earlier, as I got farther away from Missouri, the more I saw I was out of the norm for not wearing a mask. But then the closer I got, the more rural areas around here, people just aren't as worried. And so it didn't really surprise me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes.
Question, back to the discounts.
Yes.
You think those numbers, in your opinion, would have been the same if COVID was not an issue on asking for those discounts?
Yes. Discounts are always the number one thing people are going to ask for. And so we do take that with a bit of a grain of salt. It may be a little more important now because we need to jumpstart the economy. We need to get people to say, is that worth risking possibly getting sick? And so if we tell them, these are the things that we're doing to keep you safe, and here's a little bit of a discount to get you to go, they feel comfortable making that risk because they feel the risk is lower.
Right, yeah, and you're just wondering, there's been some issues and discussions lately around here about local discounts.
Yeah.
And I've
Which
heard
is-
everything from how dare you
Yeah.
ask for that.
Yeah.
And, if they're thinking, hey, you're the tourist that Branson needs the business, they ought to be offering me a discount.
Yeah, and like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be 10% off. If it can be, we're gonna partner with these 3 attractions, and you can come and buy this package deal. If they feel, that package deal may be no less expensive than if they bought the tickets separately, but if they feel like, oh, this is convenience, the discount is my time at this point. If
Yeah.
I can conveniently book a trip and everything's planned for me, and I don't think I'm gonna get sick, great, that feels like a bargain to me.
Great,
So,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Simmons, you have a question?
Yes, I'm just working off the information here and then your definition of your short vacation. It sounds like our messaging should be that not only are what we're doing to be safe, and that brings up a question to me of how much of that, if any, should be government-related, or is what individual places are doing and advertising and they're following through, then maybe the government doesn't need to be involved in it.
Right.
So that's a major question. But we're also looking for responsible guests. And I don't know how you get that across in messaging, but it seems like you yourself said you tried to do know what was required and what other people were doing. It seems that might appeal to the type of people who are going to get out first. Are they going to be among those responsible guests? That's a new take on it. I appreciate that.
I think that you can, with your messaging, while you're saying, these are the things we are doing to keep you safe, we also ask that you do X, Y, Z to help keep your fellow travelers safe, just as a part of the kind of mutual agreement between you and the place that you're visiting. I think that's easily done.
Thank you.
Any other
Would you
questions?
would you disclose where you went?
I went to Florida. It was not in Missouri. My husband, my son hadn't seen grandparents in over 3 months, and they were begging to have him for a week. And so my husband and I thought, maybe we can just go to the beach for a few days, and that's what we did. So took a little road trip.
Go
ahead.
Any other?
I got a question.
You got one?
Yeah, and it's this, the key messages should focus on safety. By your survey and your discussions, are you saying that our message of advertisement should focus more on the assurance of safety in conjunction with what all Branson has to have, which is definitely a different message than we've ever thrown out?
Absolutely.
Are
And
other venues, locations around the United States doing such too?
yes, we're seeing a lot of destinations focus on, number one, drive markets that have traditionally been fly markets. They know that people aren't going to fly, and so they have to get their visitors from somewhere. So they're focusing on those drive markets, and they're focusing on recovery campaigns. So very different from what they've ever done before. It's what people are craving, and that's what we're seeing nationwide.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Ready?
Okay, so I have a little bit of a different presentation. I'm going to have to switch over here so I can drive, because I'm going to show you the dashboards next.
Okay. Do you have driver's license?
That's interesting. What a different message of safety versus an ad.
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, can you hear me now? Here we go. Okay, so like Rachel mentioned, we have a few different dashboards to show you today. These are going to replace some of the information we've seen in either PDF documents or Excel data tables, and they're going to be interactive dashboards. So this first dashboard I'm showing you today is called the H2R Scout Report. And what this is replacing is our typical DMA report. We have surveyors out in Branson who collect zip codes from visitors, so we know where they're coming from. And we would typically see in the tens of thousands of zip codes throughout an entire year. The data for this dashboard is coming from geolocation data from location-enabled smartphones, and we're seeing in the hundreds of thousands to 500,000 pings per year. So our sample size is much larger, much more accurate to tell us where people are coming from. The great thing about these dashboards that will be available in real time all the time. We don't have to wait for a report to be published each month or each quarter. They're always available with the most recent data. We just actually updated this data through the end of May yesterday. So what you're seeing here is visitation to Branson from January through May of 2020. The biggest market, which is not surprising, is Springfield. Our most popular day so far has been January 1st, but that will obviously change throughout the year. Day of the week visitation, Saturday is our most visited day, and you can see by month so far for this year what the trend has looked like. So we saw a spike in March, probably right before everything shut down. April came down a bit, quite a bit, and then May we're starting to see tick back up, which is great. The first thing I will show you is this is interactive. So if I want to see a different year, I'm going to choose 2019. So this is 2019 for the entire year. We can see that for the end of the year, Joplin was actually a really high market for us. Looks like Springfield was the highest in visitation, but as far as the BDI goes, which I'll explain in just a second, Joplin was our highest market. The BDI is the Brand Development Index, and what that tells us is the visitation compared to its own population. So if all markets were created equal and visited us in equal numbers, you would see markets like Los Angeles and New York at the top because they have the most people to offer. And so Joplin visits in much higher numbers than their population would suggest. So they're one of our highest markets, feeder markets. And what this is good for is we can take a look at these different markets and say, are we advertising in all of these top markets? And if not, we've got some really good potential maybe in, let's say, Topeka, where we've got some good visitation, they index pretty high, but we're not quite advertising there yet. Let's see if we can get Topeka visitation to come up a bit. Another great thing about this is any part of this is clickable. So if I want to know more about Topeka, I can click on Topeka and see that their most popular day to visit is here. I can see their trends in visitation over the course of the year. Their most popular day of the week to visit is on Fridays, and just see a whole host of information about each market. I can take a look at the distance tiers, so I can see, people who live, within that closest tier. It's just these markets, and this is when they visit. These are their most popular days. People living within that closest tier visit most likely on Saturdays, not Fridays. Weekend versus weekday visitation. It's all interactive. So anything you want to click on, you can click on here. We have information all the way back to 2017. So we can see visitation data.
Could you do me a favor? Could you go into Louisiana and go into Shreveport so I can look and see the visitation by day? Sure.
Which year would you like to see?
19 would be fine.
All right. Let's see.
That's my birthplace, so I gotta check out.
Sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so let's see if we can find Shreveport. It should be, here we go. So in 2019, Shreveport's most popular day was Friday, July 5th. Had some pretty typical visitation throughout the summer, waned off throughout the rest of the year. So that's your Shreveport data.
So basically what I'm seeing is still, to follow up on a little bit what Larry was talking about, your Monday and Tuesdays were down all across the board, and we saw it increases towards Wednesday through Sunday.
That's correct.
And Ashley, if you would, because this is as interactive, I'm not sure you can do this, but I know last year, 2019, there was a lot of feelings from businesses that our Friday, we were turning into more of a weekend destination versus a week. Can you look at 2019 overall and day of week?
So here is 2019 overall. Looks like Saturdays, followed by Fridays, followed by Sundays and Thursdays. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday were the least. This slide right here, this little chart right here, you can take a look at the different week parts. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can see, the different visitation trends.
But they're not that far off.
Yeah, so we've got, Tuesday was at 9%, Saturday was at 22%. So Tuesday is definitely your lowest. But, you look at Sunday through Wednesday, it's
Yeah,
pretty close. Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, these are the closest, I think.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashley.
Definitely. And you can look at this by year too. So we could look at 17, 18, 19 and see how the percentages change. So you can see, am I trending that way? And as 2020 is going to be a weird year. Yeah. So this is all interactive and available.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
This is available.
Rachel, I don't know, are you embedding this on your site soon? Yeah. So we're going to get this embedded for public consumption.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the KPI dashboard. Aha, that was even easier. Okay, so this dashboard has information that we would typically see in the quarterly presentations. Instead of providing a presentation each quarter where we have to wait on the data to roll in, we're actually providing this data in real time, just like the previous data. So we have estimated visitation is the first KPI. So taking a look at, we are actually going through April at this point. Obviously our visitation is way down compared to year-to-date 19 when we look at April 19. So not surprising there. We also have on this first page city sales tax, tourism tax, TCED tax, Stone County tax, and Taney County tax. And that's just page 1. So all of our Branson performance indicators are on this first page. We roll it up, we see every chart, every page you'll see and every metric you'll see has a chart by month on the far left. You can hover over any month and see what that was for that particular month. The middle chart, we roll it up by quarter and compare it to that same quarter last year. And then the far right, we roll it up for the entire year so far and compare it to the previous year so far. Wow. So it's always apples to apples information. Let's see here. Page 2 has visitor profile KPIs. And these are the same KPIs that you would see in the quarterly reports that Jerry normally delivers to you guys. So first-time visitors to Branson, we actually don't have 2020 data yet because we did not survey starting in March like we normally do because everything was shut down. So this is actually 2019 versus 2018 data right now. As soon as we get 2020 data start rolling in, this will flip over to 2020. But you can see, you know, first-time visitors were down just a bit at the end of last year. Family visitation was up just a bit. Spending per party also went up. Average adult age was a bit younger, not surprising when we see more families. Length of stay was pretty consistent from 18 to 19. Percent seeing live shows, we did see that drop a bit. And the number of live shows seen was pretty similar, 2.9 to 3.2 is not that much. And then on the third page, you will see some US economic KPIs that we always deliver as well. Not surprising, US unemployment rate. This is just something to be expected. It's through April right now. I'm sure that we'll see that continue to increase and hopefully level off soon. Gasoline prices, Dow Jones, consumer confidence. So not to get too much into the details, this is literally just to show you the types of information that is available on this KPI dashboard that normally you would have to wait to see every 3 months is going to be live and always updated for you. The last dashboard I'm going to show you is the full visitor profile. So we got a few KPIs on that last dashboard. This next dashboard is going to be a visualization of all visitor profile data. And it's usually going to be the current year versus the previous year. So it looks like we've got a little bit of 2020 data in here already, which is great. I didn't realize we had that yet. So, you know, looking at other destinations considered, first time versus repeat visitation, number of visits, decision time, primary purpose. I mean, everything is here. So if you want to dig even deeper into visitor profiling data and see what we have to offer, besides those 5 or 6 KPIs on the other dashboard, we've got everything here. Method of transportation, local media usage and influence, number of shows seen, activity participation, timeshare visitation. And it's a pretty long dashboard. I know at a recent board meeting that I presented at, we talked a lot about Net Promoter Score and what people were saying about recommending Branson. The great thing about this is our Net Promoter Score in 2020 increased quite a bit, and I can see here what all my promoters are saying. I can scroll through and see what my neutrals and detractors are saying. So I always have a pulse on what people are saying about recommending the area, how much money they're spending, even the types of technology that they use, so we know where we can reach them with our advertising, the different types of social media that they follow for Branson, the messages that they receive, their most influential sources, and at the very bottom, you'll see a demographic profile. So gender, age, ethnicity, and household income. Just a lot of information if you really want to dig into what the typical Branson visitor looks like.
Amazing.
Yeah, isn't it great?
I would give her a standing ovation.
Woo! I'm so happy. We've been working on this for a while. Rachel's been like, can we have something? And I'm like, I think we can deliver. So I'm so excited that we have this. We're going to get it embedded on a public site that people can use. And again, as soon as we have the data from we have our surveyors out in Branson all the time. They're starting to get back out now that things are opening back up. As soon as we have data, it'll be live on here. So you won't have to wait for a specific day of the month. It'll always be live. So.
Ashley, thank you very much.
You're welcome. That's all I have for you today.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming down and sharing. Obviously, we can spend a lot of time on this on our own.
Yes.
Being able to go into it. So thank you for that information.
And we're always available. If you have questions, just call myself or Ashley at H2R.
Just yell for Ashley, right?
Yes, just
One
call
or
for
two.
Ashley. Either one of us.
Which one of you going to answer, huh?
Thank you very much. All right. Moving along, update on Recycle Center, Keith Francis.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the board. Welcome Alderman C. and Alderman Whitus.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you a short presentation here, some basic facts about the Recycle Center. When we're right on our priority-based budgeting right now, we thought this would be the prime time to look at this and bring it to y'all's attention, what the Recycle Center actually costs us to keep it operating. Find this thing here. Is that the right one? Yeah. Okay. The city of Branson, as everyone knows, does not operate a trash and waste collection system. All of these services are provided by, there's 2 or 3 companies around town that I know of, some smaller companies with a pickup and trailer, but are all operated by private companies. To our knowledge, this is not required by federal, state, county, city laws or ordinances. And back in 1992, the city passed a resolution to start the Recycle Center and open it up. There were no rules or restrictions or regulations who could bring items to the Recycle Center. It's just a free-for-all. Anybody and everybody could drop things off there. There's no cost to anyone except to the citizens who pay the taxes. You know, they pay taxes to cover the cost, and the cost is approximately $250,000. That's an approximate number. It goes up and down. Right now, this year, with what everyone is paying for recycled items is basically nothing. You know, we get very little off of anything off of it. They can bring their recyclables. In 2012, the enterprise is offering recycling for a fee. There's one private business right now, it's Republic Services, I'm sorry, used to be Allied, that offers recycle, a service to everyone. The other company, to my knowledge, does not offer that. But in 2017, China passed the National Sword Policy, which basically prohibited any incoming recyclable materials into their company. So the market was just flooded with, the amount of cardboard, plastics, things like that. And the prices fell to nothing. By 2030, the estimated 111 million metric tons of the plastic waste will be discarded and can no longer send waste to China. This study was done by the University of Georgia Scientific Advances. In 2019, revenue and expenditures were $239,153. Expenditures for personnel and operations, and the little bit of money we made off of it was around $13,862. Like I said, that number goes up and it goes down. Citizens of Branson currently pay the taxes for the recycling costs, and we currently take recyclables from Taney County, Hollister School, Stone County Courthouse, an Indian Point Recreation Area. And basically, like I said before, anybody that wants to bring stuff down there and drop it off can drop it off free of charge. Prior to the COVID-19 virus, staff had thought about looking at this and talked about it. And in previous years, and my predecessor, you know, I don't know if David ever brought anything like this up or not, but we got to looking at it, and when we started looking at our budgeting numbers, we thought this is the prime time to bring it up to everyone, to let everyone know what this actually costs us. And this does come out of the general fund. So during the COVID-19, the recycle center was closed down due to health and safety issues because of handling all the water bottles basically that everybody drinks out of and touches, so we closed it just for safety purposes also. What we think is recycled is actually not. We've got two lists there, the recycled on the left and not recyclable stuff, which we get a dumpster full every week from, you know, people bringing stuff in there that's not supposed to be bringing it. So, and y'all can read that there, you know, there's cartons, hard plastic bottles, light bulbs, plastic lids, plastic bags, paint cans, aluminum foil. There's a menagerie of stuff that we cannot recycle. Courses of action. This is where you all's gonna need to make a decision here. Not today or anything, but for discussion. Do nothing, no change, continue losing our approximately $250,000 per year out of our general fund. Close the recycle center, stop taking business away from private industry. City of Branson Republic Service, who still desire to recycle, could add recycling for approximately $7 a month. And we call them, talk with them directly, and it just depends on exactly where you're at is what it's going to cost you to add that to your monthly trash bill. Other option, keep the recycle center open, but offer it at a higher cost of to generate the revenue and put us in the black instead of in the red all the time. We could charge by the pound for the recycle at a flat rate for every user every time someone comes through there, or charge higher fees to non-city of Branson residents. And when we do that, if we would ever start charging people to come through there, that would eliminate all the off-site trailers and after-hours drop-offs, things like that, you know. So then we would look at adding more staff, which would cost us more revenue, more money, to add more staff to staff it more, because you're going to have a bigger influx of people that drop off things on the weekends. That's going to be dropping it off through the week, unless we staff it on weekends, which then, you know, there's another thing we have to look at. Anyway, that's a short presentation. It's hard to follow what we just saw about the tourists and things, but you see in the big letters across the bottom, if we had to rate this with our budgeting and stuff, staff would recommend closing the recycle center. So there's a lot of information really quick there. I'll be glad to answer any questions or anything y'all may have
Alderman,
about it.
any questions?
Keith?
Yes, sir.
Did you speak with Republic Trash about this and what they'll accept? Or did this take the 5 listed here as recyclable and none of the other things?
Now say that again.
Would they, Republic only accept the 5 recyclable items?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
And so they wouldn't do all these others?
No.
Gotcha.
No. And to my knowledge, the way they do it, they deliver one big dumpster and you throw everything in the dumpster.
No sorting?
And then no sorting or anything, yeah.
Okay.
Keith, I have that, and they don't take glass.
No.
Mr. Simmons?
Well,
They take that because we asked them to, do they not? Back in 2012, I think we asked the companies that were operating at that time to take recyclables.
Okay.
And that's why they did it. I don't know that they did it as a business move. They did it because the city asked them to.
Republic Services, Allied Waste?
Well, it may not, it was whoever was in,
Oh, I see, okay.
in 2012.
Oh, okay, okay.
The $250,000, how much of that is labor, roughly? I mean, half or?
If I remember right, it's probably 3/4 of it or better.
Yeah.
3/4 of that.
And really, our policy to me has been, it's kind of a twofold policy. We've been really encouraging this, trying to make it as convenient as possible and as many people as possible to do it. And at the same time, it's costing us more and more money to do it. So those things now become at odds with each other. I think there is a third solution beyond the two that you've shown. I think that we could revamp the type of operation we have. What do we take? How do we take it? Who do we take it from? I think there are some other alternatives that we probably should look at. The benefits here are largely intangible, but we have a tremendous group of people here in the city of Branson, individuals that love recycling. I mean, they do it, they think it's the right thing to do, and what they take to our recycling center, in general, they take clean stuff. And so what comes out of that is clean stuff that you can be disposed of for as little as possible, or maybe even sell it sometimes. So that's one section. Do you have any idea how much of what we get is commercial?
Not offhand, I don't know, because we have.
It would be hard to tell, I realize, but don't we get a lot of restaurants and people that do bring down bottles and et cetera that?
Yeah, and a lot of it is on our off-site trailers and after-hours drop-off stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Like the ones that sit out there at the church on Highway 76.
I don't see much of a way to continue the off-site trailers, but what we accept on-site, I think we could save some of that. And I think our tourists even really appreciate seeing that there's recycling being done here at the convention center, et cetera. You know, I get all kinds of comments that, boy, we're happy to see that. And the reason is they have it at home, so they think it's the right thing to do. And if we're doing it here, it's another impression, like we're going to do our COVOID things correctly, and we're going to make them as safe as possible. Well, they appreciate seeing the recycling.
Right.
So there's some intangible benefits too. But I think that we should take a really hard look at this, and then what's going to happen to it if we don't take it. This is tons and tons of material every year, and if we don't take it, some individuals won't cost them any more money. They'll just put it in their little trash bin at home. I know since we haven't been recycling here during the COVOID, when you've been closed, we now have about 3 times as much trash every week as we had before. And fortunately, we're just 2 little old people, so we only fill our big container to about here, so 3 times more still just fills the container. Doesn't cost us any more, but if we'd had a full one every time, and now we had 3 full ones every time, it would cost us more. So your businesses, certainly it'll cost them money. The individual merchants, the ones that are using that, they're going to foot a new cost. So there are an awful lot of things to be looked at here before we make this decision. And $250,000 is a lot of money. Exactly what priority-based budgeting is supposed to do. Make us look at these things and make a conscious decision.
And that's what we're trying to do here, you know. It's prime time to do it right now. You know, bad that the virus has hit everywhere, but we thought this would be the good time to bring it to your all's attention to look at. So.
Any other comments from Alderman? Any other questions?
Mayor?
Yes.
I'll start off by just echoing a lot of what Bob said. I agree with a lot of your comments, Bob. Could we get a breakdown of that $250,000 so we can just look at it and maybe consider other ways to do that, like Bob suggested?
Yep.
Like Bob said, the environmental and the social responsibility, I think, is real important for our residents and our visitors. the convention center, during their presentation, they were real proud of the amount that they recycle. So I just think that's something that, I know it's a cost, pretty good cost, but I'd sure like us to find a way to stay as, Branson is a recycle city, it's a green city. How is our, we used to have a spring and fall cleanup, and do we still have a spring and fall cleanup, do you know?
We have canceled it as of now, yeah. For the spring one, definitely, it's been canceled when the virus hit, so we quit it.
But do we plan on picking it back up?
Possibly, yeah.
Who,
And it cost us approximately 45,000 spring, 45,000 in the fall to do that cleanup.
I think our residents truly appreciate the spring and fall cleanup. And I'm not sure what the process is to make decisions, but things like that, I would like to see come to the board and get their opinion before we just scrap it, because we're the ones that are going to catch the heat on, why are we not doing this anymore? But I think that one I'd like you to put, if you would, Keith, put it back on the list of, let's continue it unless there's been a decision made to cancel it, please. Thank you.
Mr.
Keith, you may have to get back with us. I have, of that 250,000 it costing us, how much is that? Are the outerlying areas costing us because they're taking the material to us? And if we took them out of that equation, how much would that reduce off that 250,000? Which may be, like I said, something else for the future discussion. Let's just call it Hollister, Forsyth, Taney County, or Stone County. Bringing it in, how much is that costing us? If you remove that, does it make it palatable to continue to recycle, Branson?
Yeah, it's hard to determine unless you check every person that's dropping stuff off, especially the after-hour drop-offs. You know, we have no idea who drops stuff off there or anything. It could be people out of a hotel or from Florida or wherever that recycles, you know. But that would be a hard number to break down.
Are the municipal governments doing that, or those individuals that we're talking about?
You mean bringing us stuff?
Yes.
Well, like one of them, like I said, is Taney County over there. Hollister Schools, Stone County Courthouse, Indian Point, and like I said, basically anybody wants to drop stuff off.
So following up on what Bill said, and I know we don't have it in place now, but it may be important in our decision-making going forward, is I think the question Bill's asking is, if this recycling service was free to Branson residents and Branson businesses, and we could charge those that are not in Branson, because like as you mentioned, the Branson residents and businesses are paying the tax on to keep this open. So is that a feasible thought of residents, businesses, recycles open, everybody else has to pay a fee?
I mean, we would be checking everybody that brings stuff through, just like a Branson driver's license for your address and stuff. There's Branson addresses around here that's not within city limits, you know. So it would have to be a check of some sort done.
Just thinking out loud of ways to
sure,
keep it.
And we've thought of things like that, you know, well, how do we start checking people?
Have you had discussions with Republic of dropping off those giant trailers down at our recycling center that people could use that? And they would be, you know where I'm going with that.
You're talking about the big roll-off dumpster?
Yeah, instead of our staff having to maintain
And that's
it?
what the city of Galena does with theirs over there, and they get charged a flat rate over there. Republic Services brings a big roll-off with their big trucks, rolls it off, and people can just take stuff down to the dumpster and dump it in, basically, then they pick it up. But all the citizens get charged a flat rate fee on their utility bills and stuff.
Keith, do you know how much that is?
Not offhand, not with Galena.
Just something future discussion.
Yeah.
Mr. Simmons?
Now, if I remember right, the city of Hollister has that on their bills, and don't quote me on this, but I believe it's an additional $14 a month.
Keith, just before I came down to this meeting, I told my wife what we were talking about to get what my opinion would be from her. And she told me that I would pay up to $9 a month just to be able to
Really?
take stuff down there and recycle it. Now, she doesn't like paying the trash company to come by because they do not separate it. They separate it into recyclables, but papers and bottles and everything
Yeah.
go in the same container.
Right.
So you got to wonder in the long run, is that
Yeah.
really recycling?
Yeah.
But to get it clean, she told me that I would pay $9 to have her be able to go down there and do that a month. And so there is a possibility to me of having memberships of people and having it closed. I think you would have to use some kind of a camera system to enforce that because I know they constantly have problems down there, people just dumping anything in whatever barrel.
Right.
So you'd have to have some way to monitor that. But maybe there are some revenue sources that we could come back with some way and be able to keep recycling for those that are dedicated to it and come up with a very clean recycling product. And perhaps Mona knows the most about this, or certainly she knows the most of anybody I know about it.
Okay, all right, we'll look into it.
Mayor?
Yes.
Keith, I was just thinking about the transfer station. When you go there, you have to bring a utility bill or show something, proof of residency. That may be another idea of how we
For
can.
the spring and fall cleanup for the county, you mean?
No, at the transfer station, they had, and I forgot what the time was. It was for something, but I know we had to go up there. We had to bring a utility bill or show something with proof of residency before you were allowed to go in. And that may be a similar concept of what maybe we could do with separating out Branson with Stone County.
I know I've taken stuff to a transfer station before and I just weigh by the ton, drive across the scale, then drive back across, pay by the ton. I think there's a minimum charge of, I don't know, $7 or $8, something like that.
Any other questions or any comments? Just a comment, just being around City Hall and knowing how much discussion's taken place. We've gotten obviously several contacts from citizens, people contacting us and telling us that they're concerned about not being able to recycle. And the question, one of the questions, several of them have come up here that they discussed, I know they discussed, was also working a cooperative effort with some of the folks that are the primary users, whether or not we would go to some other cities and maybe they take part of the recyclables. One city be designated for the glass, one be designated for plastic, one so on. And just talking about it and then seeing if we could work out a fee arrangement with the cities and the folks that are involved to help. So there's been lots of discussion and it sounds like there needs to be some more discussion. Thank you for your comments and discussion on this. Thank you very much. Update on legislation, Chris Lebec.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the board. This is just a brief update of kind of what happened in our legislative session this year, and also to bring the new members of the board up to speed with kind of how we go about trying to advocate in Jefferson City for some of our priorities here in Branson. So what we do, just to kind of level set this, is we do contract with a professional lobbying service. It's called Capital Solutions Consulting. We go through this exercise once a year. We determine what they're going to do for us up in the Jefferson City and what our legislative priorities are. And so probably about February, March of next year, maybe hopefully a little bit earlier, we are going to come before you with our legislative priorities, things we think are important that we need to push with our General Assembly up in Jefferson City. These are our legislative priorities from 2019. This is what we have designated as things that we want to advocate for as a municipality. Big ones are the ticket reseller loophole. We've tried that a couple times now. Internet sales tax is a big topic, and that is the Wayfair case. So if somebody does an online sale, they don't have to remit sales tax. It's the nexus test with where did the purchase occur. And we have things like entertainment districts for the consumption of alcohol. We have some, part of our legislative priorities were with regards to loggers and public safety employees, statewide building codes, but this is just kind of a layout of what we decided last year were important to the city. Water sources, that's a big thing right now with our Compton wastewater treatment plant. Criminal histories and background checks. 5G has been a hot topic kind of nationwide. That's set to sunset, the 5G legislation that's currently on the books in 2021. So I anticipate us having to revisit this again, middle of next year. And then things with regards to substance abuse treatment facilities and some licensing requirements. So again, these are our legislative priorities. This is what the board decided we needed to advocate for up in Jefferson City through Capital Solutions. So what is the General Assembly? I don't mean to make this a high school civics lesson, but it's nice to kind of level set this and know how our government works. Missouri Constitution says that they must convene on the first Wednesday after the first Monday in January following the state general election, and they meet for 4.5 months. So there's a very small window in which legislation can get moved through the General Assembly, and that's the regular session. And then what happens, bills that are approved that go through both chambers go to the governor for signature. And if the governor vetoes, then there's a special veto session in September. The governor also has the authority to call special sessions. There have been 2 pushes right now. The first is by the chamber this year with regards to liability restrictions with regards to COVID. So there's some concerns that businesses may end up getting sued because somebody gets sick on their facility because they're not exercising the appropriate safety precautions. And then the other big one is Wayfair. There's been a push to try to get a special session to address Wayfair. So far, those haven't been successful. So as of right now, what we're looking at is a possible veto session in September.
Chris, just real quick, the
Yes, sir.
issue on welfare, do you see them to be somewhat more inclined to look at that since they're losing their backside in sales tax revenue to internet sales?
Absolutely. I think there's been a huge, and this is just me speaking from what I've seen and read, there's been a huge cultural shift as a result of COVID. Most of us are inclined to do our purchasing online now. I mean, I do grocery pickup at home. I buy a lot of stuff through some of our internet retailers, and I think most people are doing that now and it resulted out of necessity. So this has become a cultural shift, and then it's now a part of our culture. We're just going to be used to doing it and continue to do it. So as a result of that, there is going to be a decline in local sales. And I think that's just the nature of what we're dealing with today.
I just saw that how much was cut out of the Department of Education's
Almost
budget because of that.
$250 million.
Yeah.
Chris, real quick on
Yes, sir.
the COVID liability. Is that getting pushed back?
The chamber has pushed it, but there has been no comment yet saying, hey, we're going to have a special session, we're not going to have a special session. It's really hard to read the tea leaves as to where we're at on that. And by the chamber, I mean the statewide.
Yeah.
Okay. I just use this, not to belittle the process. This is actually from a coloring book put out by the General Assembly, but just to illustrate how complicated it is for a bill to become a law in the state of Missouri. There is a lot of roadblocks, a lot of hurdles to go through before it actually can get put into effect. And that's illustrative this year. There were 2,200 bills filed with our legislature. Only 32 were passed. A lot of that was a result of COVID. And of the 32, 19 were budget bills. So that kind of gives you an idea of the success rate for something to move through our General Assembly. So what were our big things? The first thing was our ticket reseller bill. That's House Bill 2504. City of Branson was involved in some litigation back in early 2000s where we went after some of the online travel companies, Expedia, Hotels.com. And during that process, St. Louis County was also involved. There was a last-minute legislative change that caused basically an exemption for online travel companies. So as a result of that, the intermediaries. So if I sell a ticket or I sell a hotel to a intermediary, that intermediary doesn't have to collect tax. It's just on the original movement. So the goal is to try to close up that loophole, shore it up. We were making some significant progress with this. Expedia had a lobbyist up there. We came to a compromise that I think accomplished what City of Branson would be happy with and also what Expedia could live with. And then COVID hit. And so it just kind of died in committee. Mayor and admin, we went up there and testified in front of the local government committee on this. So I guess we'll try again next year, but that was the first big effort. Second thing was Wayfair legislation. There has been a number of bills filed because, again, everybody acknowledges this is a big issue. We saw Ozark fail recently on their use tax because, again, each municipality is having to do this at the local level. It's a lot easier for the state to just say, let's do it statewide. Bottom line is we're looking at a 45% reduction in revenue from March through July. And as I talked about this cultural shift, purchasing things online is becoming the new normal for most generations. My generation and younger, absolutely, it's been the new normal for 10 years, but everybody's starting to do this out of necessity. So why is this important? Because it levels the playing field for our local small businesses against online retailers. Right now, an online retailer is getting a percentage advantage because they're not having to collect or remit that tax. So again, this was one, there was a big push at the end, and this died in the General Assembly as well. And then finally, this was the other big thing. This was a battle. We tried to fight this one off. And this is what's called the Video Cable Franchise Fee Reduction Act. So right now in the state of Missouri, we can collect a fee for the use of our public right-of-way, our streets and our roads, for cabling, for internet, and for cable. And it's a significant chunk of change, $144,000 last year for this use. So there's been a push because, again, everybody's cutting the cord, that this is a solution to help with that. So let's go ahead and remove the fee for the use of the public right-of-way. And what happened is they tried to tack this onto a budget bill at the last minute, and on the last day of the regular session, ironically, and it ended up failing. So we dodged this bullet because this would have been another almost $150,000 hit to the bottom line for next year. So those were the three big things. The one thing that did get passed that I will have to bring before the board here before August, we don't know what the governor's going to do yet, but it's the pseudoephedrine script bill. Right now in the city of Branson, we have an ordinance in place that requires a prescription for pseudo. Why? Because pseudo is a precursor to methamphetamine, big problem. So what happened is this bill did get passed. It's made it through both the House and the Senate that basically prohibits us from requiring a prescription at the municipal level. So as a result of this, if the governor does decide to sign this into law, and we don't know where his stance is, this went to the governor on May 27th, but if it does get signed or if it does jump a veto, we're going to have to make some changes. Its effective date is August 28th. So I'll have to come back before the board and ask the board to repeal a law just because the state says we have to. All right.
Just edification, if the governor doesn't sign it, it goes into law without his signature if he passes that time frame, correct?
No, he'll have to go through a veto session. He can veto it, or yeah, correct. You're right. If he doesn't sign it, it just becomes effective as is. Okay. So again, that's what we're looking at as far as legislation, one of the 32 things that did pass. This is another one. This one was kind of snuck in, which surprised a lot of people. People are starting to wake up to it. This regards to CIDs and TDDs, a big topic here in the city of Branson. What this basically does is right now, to establish a community improvement district like 76 or a transportation district, it has to be voted on by everybody in the municipality, not just the people that are subject to that establishment of that district. We don't know what the governor's going to do with this one. I think there's going to be a significant amount of pushback on this, just at the municipal level. But this did slip through. It actually got tacked on to an unrelated piece of legislation. So This may have an effect if we ever go down the CID path or like phase 3, we may have to be revisiting this. This may cause some changes to that. But other than that, that's not much happened. We tried, and COVID got the best of us, unfortunately.
Mr. Simmons?
That, the pseudoephedrine law, that we had some real problems here, was the reason we passed that.
Yes.
We were a wonderful center for buses and truckloads of people to come in and each get their minimum amount and feel free to pilfer while they were there in the stores. And that came from the citizens to us.
Yes.
To do something about that. So that is real critical to me. Is there anything at all that we need to be doing to join someone who's trying to inform the governor on this? Or if there's still a chance that that wouldn't be passed?
I will tell you this much, that the Office of Prosecution Services is seriously concerned about this one, because the behavior that you described is what's called smurfing. So what people do is they go out like Smurfs and get boxes of pseudo, bundle it up, and then they do a cook. And the script stops that because, again, you're getting logged onto a registry and they know how much you've purchased. So there is a real concern there from a law enforcement perspective. Again, same situation. There's that argument against, over here, we have the retailers and the pharmacies saying, hey, this is causing us a huge hassle and a huge inconvenience. So if this does go through, we may have to get a little creative on how we address this problem. I haven't seen any good ideas yet. I will tell you, though, just as a prosecutor for over a decade, locally cooked methamphetamine is kind of not a thing anymore. We get it imported from other places, from other countries, and it's caused the price of it to just drop out. And Chief Matthews can speak better to this today than I can, but again, this is not as big of a problem as it was 10 or 15 years ago, because again, it's the imports that are coming in that are controlling the market.
Well, but the surrounding states with us all did have laws like this. That's why people came to Missouri. It was the only place you could do it, and bring people from across the state line, buy it, and take it back to wherever your home was. And so it's a big problem to us being this close to state lines.
Yeah, my fear is that we're going to see more bathtub cooks. You know, and what I call a bathtub cook is the 2-liter bottle or the red phosphorus method, where they end up getting a couple boxes and doing this, because again, there's no fear that, hey, I'm going to be put on a list because I am out there actively treating my cold, if you will.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one quick statement. The one thing that really bothers me is the hit that our general revenues will take if something's not done on this Wayfair legislation. I'm worried about police, fire, water, sewer, curb guttering, potholes, parks. Our general revenues are going to take a hit, and I'm not going to call them morons, but somebody better pay attention up there, because these municipalities across the state, the cities, municipalities, the county, even the state, to take that big of a hit. The Department of Education, surely these local legislatures feeling that heat, that it's depriving these municipalities of revenue, and it's going out of state, and it ain't coming back. Correct. I still didn't call them morons.
Didn't hear anything.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate your presentation. All right. Comes down to Mayor's report. I've got a couple questions, really. The recommendation by staff was to bring the recycling center to recommend to close it. Does board want that brought before the Board of Aldermen to vote on it? What's your prerogative?
I want more information, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like more information also.
Yeah. From a standpoint of trying to expedite, because there's a lot of folks who are asking and questions, as we all know. Do we want to try to hold a special meeting, a discussion meeting specifically on that? What would be the best approach?
There were several of us aldermen that asked questions, and I think if those questions were answered, then that would be the time to revisit this.
Mr. Mayor, I think we can get those questions answered for you and present to you probably sometime in July for your approval. I will say that, as you know, when you said you'd been around City Hall every now and then, I think there are other options. And I think it's kind of like I was kind of shocked too when Keith said we weren't doing the fall pickup. I wasn't aware of that. I'm very in tune to the fall pickup because I've got a garage full of cardboard. Fortunately, my wife has not said I have to pay any money for that yet, but I do think there are other options that we should be exploring before we bring it to you all. So we will.
Are you talking about in another study session?
No,
in
it'll
July?
be at a board meeting.
A recommendation?
A
and
recommendation
vote.
with the options.
Okay. Is that agreeable? All right. Tomorrow's a deadline date. Actually, decisions won't be done until the July 14th on several appointments that the aldermen have to approve or have to actually vote on. And so tomorrow is a deadline date for several committees that we have here at the city. If you have someone who's expressed an interest in wanting to be involved in the city, I encourage you all to reach out to them and tell them they need to complete some forms that Lisa has. Each of the committee members whose term is up are having to complete a form again. It's not automatically done. You have to do the paperwork. So if you know of anyone who's on those committees that hasn't gotten their reapplication, please encourage them to do so. And tomorrow, it would be tomorrow at 5 o'clock, Lisa, is the deadline?
It is tomorrow at 4:30 when we close City Hall. And just, they're also conveniently available on the website too. So they can just go out and fill it online and submit it electronically. So they don't necessarily have to come to my office. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. There are appointments that we will cover in the next 23rd June meeting, which are appointments by the mayor. And those appointments don't require votes, and so we'll be doing that on the June 23rd. I encourage you to look at the June 23rd agenda and see if you have any questions prior to the meeting or the information that we might be able to get pulled together on any of the items that are there. In general, I guess I just take this time to thank our community. This has been a really difficult time, economically and from a fear standpoint for people. Knowing people who have tested positive for the COVID-19, seeing places in Branson that are really trying to do their best to make people feel safe and to make sure that people feel like they're safe is important, and we've got to try to encourage that. We do have right now a little bit of a spike, a second level of COVID-19 cases. The 26th, I think, just, is Melody in here? No. Was it the 26th that we just got? 27? From yesterday's. So we're seeing some increase. Obviously, some of that came, we had a very busy weekend and Memorial Weekend, so we may have had some reaction to that some. It takes usually a couple weeks to be able to get the information. There have been some instances of people who have been here that live elsewhere and have gone back and they have been tested, but those don't count on our county figures. But I just would want to encourage our community to continue to recognize that this airborne disease is out there, and it's very, very difficult to detect, and to encourage them to do whatever they feel comfortable doing in protecting them, their employees, and the visitors that come here. I would entertain a motion, unless anybody else has anything. Administration have anything?
Just where are we on that disaster relief for our water and sewer?
Okay. The question is where are we on the disaster relief for our sewer treatment plant? And we're in conversations. It's a very frustrating situation in that we've dealt with it. We've known since 2016. 2017, we almost came within 1 feet of water getting into our sewer treatment plant. We've been told that we're a poster child for the funds that were allocated for 2017, but those funds have not been dispersed. We're still waiting. I can tell you that one of Stan's biggest frustrations is the fact that we can't get answers and get straight answers of why monies keep being reduced and so on. So at some point in time, we're trying to bring it to as much of a head as we can to get the people involved that really can make the decisions. We've reached out and asked for meetings or asked for communication directly rather than just being upset because we pointed out facts. And so at this point in time, we're still waiting. And every time we have a forecast of heavy rains, I have to admit that my stomach churns because you don't know. There we're talking about 65% of the businesses in this community not having sewer treatment facilities. 65% of the income they would have developed, not mentioning the environmental impact down the White River Basin. It's just amazing to me. This was going on long before COVID came, but COVID is, like in a lot of cases, become somewhat of an excuse, it seems. But we need to have that done and protect the citizens in our community. Thank you, Bill, for the question. Anything additional to that, Stan or John? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, vote, please. All opposed, vote, please.
Aye.
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 Do we need, no, we don't have the physical things. It sounds like that the 5 aldermen who are present, that they approved the motion to adjourn.